Hey guys, JB here from Alpha Wolf Consulting, coming to you today with another episode of Understanding Thyself. And this episode is all about understanding change within ourselves and change within other people, and how to sort of, I guess, create a framework of understanding around expectations of change. So if we sort of think about it like this, a lot of us think about change as being change is an action, singular. That if I decide I'm going on a diet, I have made the change and I am on a diet. But the thing is that's not actually how change happens. So while you would be right that change is in action, change is in action over duration. So think about it like this. If we're steering a container ship, a really large ship, if we pull the steering wheel to the, let's say the port, so which is left, and we do that for 10 seconds, how far or how much change are we going to create within the course, opposed to if we were to hold it for an hour? So an important thing to understand is that when we're setting our expectations of, trying to reach or attain a goal, we have to set the expectations of the amount or the duration of action that is going to be required for change. So do you sort of understand? So like, for example, if I want to get into the best physical shape of my life, let's say, and I want to be ripped and I want to be in pristine health, well, I'm going to have to diet and exercise, and I'm going to have to diet and exercise to a level over a duration to achieve that result. Like, that result won't happen in the first week, in the second week, in the third week. As we keep progressing down, we get closer and closer and closer to the results that we're getting, but we actually don't get the results until closer to the end. So it's sort of like how, if you've ever, done bodybuilding, like, there's no to little muscle growth, no to little muscle growth, no to little muscle growth. Then you start to get your muscle growth, and you start to put on size, and then you start to develop and your muscles mature and things like this. And you start to refine that size into strength and sort of develop out the muscles. Like, it's a process. So if we only create change and we measure our change over a duration of 1 week, well, going to the gym and working out doesn't do anything. Whereas if we're measuring it over 6 to 12 months, we can see much larger and much greater results or outcomes. So what we have to do is pick the outcome we want. So let's say we wanted to be in shape. Well, it's probably only going to take about 1 to 2 to 3 months to get in shape, depending on where we're starting from. So, for example, we're setting the expectation that I'm going to work out for the next month, and we'll sort of see where we're at there, if we get in shape enough that I'm happy, or if more needs to be done. So if we think about this like any other goal, all it is we set the first expectation, but we have to understand how long is it actually going to take to get there. Like, how much energy and action do I have to exert to actually get there? And unfortunately, a lot of us lie to ourselves and try and make it seem like, there's ways around that work, that time, we're trying to get it now. And that's the downfall. Because if we only work out for instant results, no results will be gotten. The results are like an outcome of the duration of conditioning. Just to the same, if you want someone's behaviour to change. Like, don't think of it as if I tell someone their behavior needs to change, that it's going to change. Like, it's not an instant process. If you truly want someone's behavior to change, well, you've got to understand, well, how long is it going to take to break that, behavior, and how long is it going to take to put a new habit in? And then what you're able to do is, instead of looking at, an argument or, a conversation where we're telling someone they need to change and they've got 7 days to do it, well, we're looking at, well, it's probably going to take 3 to 6 months to condition in the new behavior and create new habits and things like that. So an important thing to do is then, when, let's say we wanted someone to give up smoking, we don't look at it in a 7-day time frame, but we're looking at it in a 9 to 12 month time frame. And when we understand it like that, we're able to create smaller incremental gains that compound the further along you go. So it's sort of like, if we understand that, we're able to rewrite, if we're trying to give up smoking, for example, we're able to rewrite the psychological construct and meaning we have and associations we have with smoking, and it's part of identity of self, because we identify smoking as being an action that is a part of us, or something that I partake in or do. So an important thing to understand is that when we look at it from this, and we work all of this out and we take this into account, rather than just saying you need to quit smoking, and we take into account all the different psychology, like the psychological aspect of the meaning, and pretty much the meaning and the emotions behind why we're doing it, and the fabricated trauma that we've created, because this is not to take away from anyone that has been through anything that they deem as being traumatic. But what we have to understand is there is no scale of trauma. What you feel is traumatic to you. What I feel is traumatic to me. So for me, for example, I have a point of reference to anything that I experience, and that is, there are people who in Africa who their village gets taken over by a warlord and they get their arm chopped off. Is anything I'm going through ever going to be as bad as that? And that's not even the worst of it. There are people that go through worse trauma. If someone says something that upsets, offends, triggers me, makes me feel insecure, makes me feel less than, I've still got my arm. Some poor bloke had his arm chopped off. My feelings may be hurt, but it's not actually real trauma. Real traumas, you know what I mean? My point of reference is, if your life is impendently, someone's beating you to death, someone's trying to, attack you. So, for example, if someone says something nasty, or, something that's meant to make me feel insecure or less than, I'm not actually in danger. I'm in danger of being offended and upset, but I'm not actually in danger of any physical harm. So why would I have to respond that way? Do you sort of know what I mean? So it's just important when we understand this, because what we're able to do is we're able to then create the responses that we want to the situations that we're going through. And when we understand the change and how it, what is actually the duration, and, just for a rough estimate, when I'm changing behaviors, I think in terms of, 6 to 12 months of me consciously conditioning in that behavior and enforcing it within my habitual structure of my day-to-day routines. So an important thing is, if we want to put in a new habit, we can put a new habit into our, habitual actions. So they're just the actions we take on repeat regularly. So think about it like your day-to-day life. If you're a smoker, you're going to smoke. So you'll have habits around your smoking, like smoking after eating, smoking after doing something exerting. It's sort of like how, when you're doing building and backyard jobs and manual labour around the yard, when you get done with a thing, like most blokes want to have a beer after doing one thing, because it's a reward mechanism. So we've just got to understand with all of our habits, like they're based around that reward mechanisms. So you'll notice that, like, for example, if you have a habit of complimenting people, it's because when you compliment people, people are nice back to you. So it's that reward mechanism that creates. Just to the same with productivity. If you're someone who wants to be, you're a hyper productive person, it's that reward you get from being productive. There's the materially realized reward of, in career and in work situations, you progress and rise at a higher level because your performance outweighs other people's. So you naturally progress upwards. But the thing is, for example, if you're one of those people, it's the maintenance required to upkeep that. So, like, for example, some people use what's the word? Like, they use productivity as a coping mechanism for past trauma and insecurities and inferiority complexes. So, like, for example, like, I used to have that, where I felt I need to always be the best, so that I was better than others, so that there was people below me. That way I was justified being above. But the problem with that is that's a highly egotistical and narcissistic way to view society and interactions, is that, for me to be above, someone has to be below. Whereas, like, I can be above and no one has to be below me. Do you know what I mean? Like, when we look at above, or when we look at success as being a vertical, by all means there has to be people below us. But when success isn't a vertical and success is a path, well, there can be many paths. Do you sort of get it? Like, no path is greater than the other. Some may be longer, some may be shorter, but no path is sort of, under another. So that's an important thing when we think about it like that, in terms of when we're having an egocentric viewpoint where, we're believing in all the bullshit of society about how, you've got to succeed and this and that, and you only do things for money and what have you. Like, if you talk to, for example, like, let's say a billionaire, right? Like, the reasons a billionaire takes action aren't the same reasons that, someone who doesn't have $1 billion takes action. So like the majority of us think about, like, making money for the actions that we take. Like, I'll take this action because I'm going to get this in return. And the problem with this is, when we think like that, then we sort of get the frame of mind where we're, one, framing that everyone thinks like that, but then two, like, for me to help you out for free, I lose and you gain. Do you sort of get where I'm going? Like, do you sort of see? So like for you to get more than me, I am in a negative. And the problem with this way of looking at it and this way of sort of viewing it is that when I'm always thinking about what is in it for me, I'm not actually as productive as I could be. So when I'm always thinking about what the return is, well, some things are going to get higher returns and other things aren't going to get as high returns. So naturally, unless those lower return activities are, instrumental to getting the larger return activities, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to always choose to get more money for the time that I expend. And the problem with this way of thinking is it's a very, very limited range of thinking, because now all action is quantified by money. So for me to take the action and not get paid is sort of like a pointless, wasteful endeavor. I could be using that action to get paid. And then when we're trying to say you have to love what you do to be able to do what you love, or to be able to do it at the level that you want to be able to do it professionally. So like when we're talking about like becoming hyper obsessed, falling in love with what you do. The problem with this is I can only love what I do while I'm being paid for it. Do you sort of see how this paradox works? So like because money is the metric of the action being successful, okay, to take the action without money involved is therefore an unsuccessful action. So it ceases to be a valuable action. So it becomes hard to sort of put in the effort required to succeed, because we're creating these self-limiting barriers of like, I need to achieve X result to feel this way. I need to achieve Y result before I'm able to say I'm this or that. And an important thing to understand is that if we shift our frame of mind from being money, equals success in the action, to the action creating the success. So in taking the action, I become successful. Do you sort of see what I'm saying? So when we're able to do that, what we're able to do is we're able to sort of alter it from now, if I take the action without money, okay, I am in a net loss, to now, if I take the action, I am in a net positive. So we're able to take the action more and more and more, and we're able to do more. In terms of every time I take the action, I am getting better at taking the action. I am improving. I am collecting data. Like all these different things. Do you sort of see? We shift our frame of mind. So when we add this in with an understanding about, change and actually creating change, well, if I'm able to shift my perspective, okay, and I understand that it's going to take 3, 6, 9, 12 months to achieve the goal, all I have to do is sustain that shift in perspective for the duration. Like, do you sort of understand? So we're conditioning in new perspectives as well. So we're able to do this for whatever we want, and then the perspectives and the change that we don't want in life, we're able to limit our focus on it. So by me focusing more on something, okay, we increase the amount of energy and attention dedicated to it. By me,